Hey y'all, this is a YouTube review, and today we are going to be reviewing Beauty and the Beast, the live action movie that Disney has just released today. Well, yesterday. It's sort of today because it's now 12:02 where I am, so just today. I just got out of the theater like 5 minutes ago, so hop it on, get my opinion out there real quick. I had to go to the 9:30 showing at my local theater because I was doing stuff during the other times and I couldn't get to it. Anyway, because Beauty and the Beast is a relatively well-known movie and the story basically follows the same principles, there won't be a spoiler or non-spoiler review. There won't be a non-spoiler review. This is going to just be a review, which will probably include spoilers, and there are a few. Because yeah. So without any further delay, let's get into it. Okay, I'm going to be breaking this review down into a couple parts. One is the initial thoughts. Two is the highlights. Three is the critiques. Four is like final impression, and then the conclusion, basically. So my initial thoughts before going into this movie was like, okay, they're probably going to follow like the exact same story as they were with Beauty and the Beast, but probably going to add like a few more scenes in to make it at least a little bit more interesting, and potentially like bring it up to speed with more modern views or modern times. That's what I thought was going to happen in this movie, and to an extent it does, but it also it doesn't like stick to the script 100% and just make a live action movie based on the or as like an exact copy of the one that happened in animation. No, it actually goes a little bit off that. Initial views. Put it to you this way: this movie is amazing. First off, like in the theater, there were people clapping, people laughing. There was there were people. The people next to me, they were actually crying during one scene because it was like so sad. I think it was a scene with a beast. So my initial thoughts: amazing movie, really loved it. I went into it not expecting a whole lot. Like I was ready to critique it because I knew the story, I knew everything about it mostly, and I knew what was going to happen. So I was more viewing to like review it rather than to enjoy it. But I did end up enjoying it a lot, and I did notice a few things. So let's get into praises. Emma Watson, she did an amazing job as Belle. Her voice uh, worked with the songs very well. She was an amazing actor, and she had very great on-screen chemistry with like almost every character that interacted with her, especially Beast, because well, you got to have the main characters interacting well with each other. Emma Watson, she did an amazing job as Belle. This is probably like one of my all-time favorite movies she's ever been in, besides like the Harry Potter movies, as everybody knows. Yeah. The guy who plays Beast, it wasn't the most accurate portrayal to the original character, but it was an amazing portrayal of the character in and of itself. So I thought he did an amazing job too. There was some times where he stepped it up from the original character, so I kind of forgave him from the originals or from the original character. He was really good. He was really well. He had great chemistry with Bell, and he really played his part. He really did. He did very well, like showing his emotions or like what he was thinking, what he had to do. You could see the sadness on his face. Yeah. The guy who plays Gaston, I don't exactly remember who he is. Honestly, with Gaston, I was a little bit underwhelmed. Um, I thought he was going to be a little different. The way that his character is portrayed, it's not exactly like I'm a major Disney fan, so I kind of like the original character. Like the guy who's playing Gaston, he's not really able to portray the manliness is of the Gaston character, but I don't think very many men could. So yeah, Uh, so I'm willing to forgive him for that. Josh Gad as playing LeFou. He was a very interesting character. I found him very funny. He was well suited for that part. I'm not kidding. He was. I honestly couldn't think of like anybody else to play him. To maybe one other actor whose name escapes me, but yeah. The music was amazing. The songs from the original movie were good. They added a few new songs. Um, There was one right after the wolves attacked Belle as she tried to escape, and Beast saved her. After Belle takes Beast back to the castle, and she's like scrubbing his wounds and healing them, you sort of see like a flip scene of stuff, and there's a song that goes on during this like quick speed scene. Um, the scene is basically like it goes like small scene, small scene, small scene, but over a period of time. So, and there's a song going on throughout this, and it was one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in a live action Disney movie, and without a doubt, it almost brought me to tears. It did not bring me to tears because, as you guys know, not really many movies will bring me to tears ever, especially a movie I know is going to happen. So another highlight song was the solo song that the Beast had. That song was incredible. I was not expecting the guy who was playing Beast to sing, but he sang very very well, and this song was an amazing thing. It was basically his thoughts of Belle leaving the castle. And this song actually happens later after Beast releases him or releases Belle and allows her to go help her father. And this is like as Beast is watching her like leave the castle, Beast is singing, and this voice is basically saying, "Oh, you'll always be in my heart. I'll hold you close forever. No matter how far you go, I'll always keep you close." Yeah, the music was freaking amazing, and I loved every single song. There were a few things with the songs that I'll get into in the critiques. The character development was stunning. Like we saw a lot more of Maurice in the original movie, which I liked because from the original movie I wanted to learn a little bit more about Maurice, like a little bit more about like why he does things or what really happens to him during certain parts. We learned what happened to Belle's mother, and we learned why Maurice is so overprotective of Belle in the movie. We learned a lot about Belle's family a little bit. We learned more about Lumi. We learned more about the people in the castle. For one thing, there was one part of the story that I really liked that the original story never contained. It was how the more the petals fell and wilted away from the rose, the more the castle and the cursed servants would be affected. Like they said, this like a petal fell, and Lumiere began feeling more metally, and the feather duster grew more feathers, and the clock and Cogsworth started like ticking more, or like becoming more clock-like and stuff. And I thought that was really interesting because in the original fairy tale, the more the rose like wilted and died, it would only affect the beast. But in this fairy tale, it affected all of them, which I found to be interesting. You learned a few of the relationships between, like the piano guy. You learned was married to the wardrobe in Belle's room. Also, you learn about the Enchantress, more about the Enchantress. Like in the beginning of the original Beauty and the Beast movie, you only learn that the Enchantress put a spell on her, or a spell on him and the castle, because he was cruel. In this one, you learn a lot more about the Enchantress and you actually get to see what happens and how it develops, because she shows up at the beginning and curses the place like she did in the original, but she comes back at the end. Like, she's basically around to like see what happens after the rose dies, and she like lifts the curse, everything like that. So you get to see a little bit more of Enchantress, and you get to see how she like helps everything along, basically. Um, yeah, there was a pretty good amount of character development. You got to see a little bit more evil of Gaston, like when he tied Belle's father to a tree, not just when he tried to throw Belle's father into an asylum, but also when Belle's father, or when he tried to when he tied Belle's father to a tree and had to leave him to the wolves in order to like get Belle for his wife. So you saw a little bit more of like Gaston and how much of a dick he was. Attempted murder, stuff like that. Um, the scenes and the visuals were all very stunning. The castle was pretty incredible. It was amazing, and it was actually kind of like a dream come true to actually see this castle in real life, because in the cartoon you get to see all this stuff. But yeah. Also, there were also the comedy was really good. You could honestly hear a lot of people laughing really loudly in the theater that I was in, because the jokes were that funny. Not all of them were funny. A few of them were misfired, but overall they were very funny. They actually implement some jokes into the songs, like in Be Our Guest, Belle is constantly trying to eat the food, and Lumiere, while he's singing, is actually taking the food away from her before she can ever get a bite. And by the end of the song, I literally like openly asked this question to like the entire theater, and I basically said, "Okay, did anybody like actually see Belle take a bite of anything? Because all I could see was food being taken away from her before she could even touch it." So at least in like the cartoon, Belle got like a finger lick of the gray stuff. It's delicious. So yeah. Also in the song that LeFou sings to Gaston to cheer him up, Gaston, I think that's the name of the song. LeFou actually has like a little solo in there where he tries to spell Gaston's name, and he basically says, "I just realized I'm illiterate and I've never spelled his name before." That was a joke that kind of misfired for some people, but was actually very funny for me, because I found that very kind of funny. It was sort of like an impede. It was sort of like a something that wasn't really needed in the song. It was actually kind of annoying to me to an extent, because we're in the middle of a song, like a really catchy song, a really good song that like explains Gaston's character a little bit more, and you have to include comedy in that. Yeah, not really my cup of tea. But yeah. Okay, now let's get into the critiques. Some of the critiques are, as I said, the songs were amazing, but a few of them were a little like out of pace. In the original movie, you could hear that the music was going faster, and in order to like compensate for like Emma Watson's singing voice and the way she sings, they sort of like messed with the song's pacing a little bit, so it was a little bit slower. And to any like diehard Disney fan or anybody that knows the songs very well, you could really see how the songs were like messed with a little to like match the voices with the actors, because the actors had to sing this and then do it on screen, stuff like that. Um, oh yeah. The last thing in the highlights was that the songs were not all original, or the songs, there were original songs, but the songs from the older movies, most of them were changed. Like the lyrics were different. Like in Gaston's, you hear a couple different lyrics rather than the original ones. And in Little Town, the first song Belle sings, different lyrics. A couple of them. They do keep some of them from the movie in order to like make sure the song makes sense and works well, but they change it. Certain lines are given to different characters. Like in the Beast Castle when the guy is attacked by the wardrobe and put in ladies' clothing. Or like when Belle shows the Beast to everybody in the mirror, Gaston actually takes Belle's lines and saying she'll come for or he's not harmful or something like that, and instead of like a woman saying he'll eat all our children, a guy says that, or one of the townspeople says that. Also, the women in okay, back to the critiques. The songs were one thing. Another thing is that if you remember, like a week or two ago, before the movie was released, they kind of stated how LeFou was like or like one of the first openly gay characters in a Disney movie, and they sort of like mention this throughout the movie to a point a little too much. Like they add like little nods and hints as to his true motivations, and they do it so frequently that it got kind of annoying after a while. Because, like in the beginning, LeFou or Gaston was talking to himself, and then went away to help Belle, and then LeFou is talking to the mirror that Gaston was talking to. Belle was talking to Gaston's reflection, not his own. That was like the first big thing that he was like attracted to Gaston, and you see this throughout the movie. He does this a lot more throughout the movie, but not through the entire movie because certain things happen. But I think they sort of like implemented his like part a little bit too much to an extent. Another peeve is that sometimes the animation was a little sloppy. Like when Chip moves on the saucer, like there was one specific scene. It was out in like the courtyard in the snow, and his it sort of looked I can't say unprofessional because it did look very professional, but it looked like a little out of place when it moved in this one particular scene. It kind of looked like like the original like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman movies, where they kind of look like they were made out of clay and stop motion. To an extent, it looked like that, and that's what it actually reminded me of when I was looking at this, because it looked out of place, and you can definitely see this if you're actually like looking for it. For some reason, I just noticed it, and it just looked a little weird to me. It didn't take anything out of the scene; it just looked a little out of place. This is like a personal like criticism, but in the original movie, Gaston's voice was very deep and very projective, but the Gaston in this one, this is the actual main reason that I don't like is the actor himself playing this character. He did a fine job doing Gaston. He did a fine job at playing the part, but his voice was not deep enough to really effectively do the singing aspect of Gaston. And that was my main problem with him. Because if you saw the original animated movie, you know that Gaston is sort of like a baritone, really deep voice. But in this movie, he has a tenor voice, a high-pitched voice. And when you're talking about like a really manly man singing about manly things, and he starts talking like this, it doesn't exactly inspire everything, and it kind of took away from the song a little bit. That was my personal peeve on the character and on his singing voice, because it was really out of place, or it didn't really like make the song work well. But yeah, at certain times, the enchanted characters like Mrs. Potts and Cogsworth and Lumiere, a lot of the times they kind of tell you that they're more concerned about themselves than they are the Beast, and because the curse applies to them too, you would see how this happens. But they kind of mention it one too many times, in my opinion, because I don't know. Now we're coming up on 20 minutes, so I probably should finish this up soon. But yeah, this movie was amazing. The music was simply divine. The singing voices were almost flawless. The each of the main characters did or each of the actors did a fine job in doing their roles. They made a great movie, expanded on they expanded on a great story, and added more to the story. Like there was this one scene where Beast actually took Belle to her original home in Paris, France, to learn what happened to her mother. Now, Beast didn't know he was taking this to her, but it's sort of a little complicated to explain. You basically have to watch the movie to fully understand. But he basically took her to her childhood home, which is in a windmill right outside of Paris, France. And Belle wanted to go there because she wanted to learn what happened to her mother because her father, Maurice, would not tell her. And she learns what happened to her mother. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened because I want you to watch the movie and experience it like I did. That was the scene that made the couple next to me cry because it's so sad, and you finally learn a little bit more about Belle's character. You learn and this is kind of where Belle and Beast's relationship really started. In my opinion, a lot of people would argue that it started beforehand, like right after the wolf scene or during the wolf scene, during that song. But I would say the relationship really took off, in my opinion, during this specific scene because Beast got a little closer, Belle got a little closer to the Beast, and Beast got a little closer to the Belle. And you also learn. And after this, you also learn about why the prince was such a brat, why he was so mean, so evil to other people, why he was so cruel. You learn about this through the servants, actually, through Mrs. Potts, and through a little flashback they had. And I thought this was very interesting because in the original movie, they never said anything as to why the prince was bad or mean or evil. They just basically said he was. And I wanted to know why. Because nobody's really bad or born evil. Some may have really strong arguments against that, or some might prove me wrong. But yeah, it was very nice to actually learn more about the prince's original motivations into why he did something or what he did. I'm not going to tell you because I want you to watch the movie. Yeah, it was a really good movie. Final thoughts. I'm probably going to go see it again tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know, I got a lot of homework to do because I want to get all my homework done on Friday. That way I don't have anything to do over the weekend and I can just relax and be lazy and lay around. Maybe upload a video or two, but yeah. Yeah, this movie was very amazing. It actually exceeded my expectations to an extent because I expected it to be the same story, just with a few extra scenes, maybe, and a retelling of the story, maybe through a different point of view, possibly, and probably with the new actors singing the original songs. And that for the most part, was it, but they added new things, added new scenes that I never expected them to add. They added a little bit new angles. You learn more about different characters that you didn't learn about before. So yeah, they actually exceeded my expectations and my predictions. So I'm very happy about that. So final thoughts. Overall, I give this movie a 9.3 out of 10 and a 94.6% out of 100. Okay, guys, this was YouTube review reviewing Beauty and the Beast. Check it out and click the like button, subscribe, it really helps me out, and remember to click that little bell just in case you want to see more reviews. I believe my next review will probably be Ghost in the Shell, maybe, or maybe another one. I don't know, there's a lot of movies coming out soon, so you'll just have to check back. Bye.